Welcome to Creative Courage Chats, a search for a new understanding of creativity and problem solving. I'm Alex Raffy.
That's very creative. You are very creative. I love your book, by the way.
Oh, thank you
I
very
just
much.
pick it up at different times.
Yeah,
And
I've been told that. I've been told
huh?
it's not a sit down and read the whole book.
No, well, it isn't for me.
Yeah,
No.
yeah,
And when I was thinking about being on here today, I really like chapter 10, which is the journey. And it's about your sunset moments and how you thought that your daughter should be as intrigued and having as much fun with the sunsets as you. And she was just sort of blasé. And I had to laugh at that because how true that is, that we need to appreciate the voyage that we're on and not just look at the ending. And I very much look at Alzheimer's diagnosis as a beginning, not an ending. So anyway,
yes.
I just take it and apply it to wherever I need it.
Yeah,
So thank you for that.
yeah. Well, it's cool that we're going to have this chat. I've known you for a long time. I think you're a lovely human being. So I'm excited to talk to you. So I'm just going to jump right in. So,
Okay.
I actually might even keep what we just chatted about, and I don't know,
Okay.
we'll see where it goes. But hi everybody. We're back to another Creative Courage Chats. I'm here with Nancy Nelson, and she is an author, and she has written a book that so here, describe the book. You'd do a better job of describing it.
Well, okay. The reason that I started writing was because I'd been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's, and all of a sudden, between like 3 and 5 a.m. in the morning, I would start waking up, and words were just plummeting to my fingertips. And so I started writing them down. And consequently, I have written 3 books. It is a journey beginning in 2013. And we're now in 2020. I've written 3 books and looking at the 4th one. And my hope and mission with this is that I can bring hope and Alzheimer's together, that we don't need to be afraid of it. We need to turn around and look at it. And I think I've done it, and I'm told I've done it very well. So I'm blessed. Somebody said, "Don't use luck." Okay, I'm very blessed.
I think it was Brian.
Well,
so can you do a little bit of a explanation as to what Alzheimer is?
Well, Alzheimer's is the umbrella is dementia, and under that umbrella, the spokes they go into 70 different categories. Alzheimer's being one of them. 70% of dementia falls under the Alzheimer's category. So it is not remembering, it is not being able to find your way. What happened to me was I would be driving down a street that I've lived in Vegas 55 years. So I'd be driving down a street, and all of a sudden, I didn't know where that world I was going. And I would have to literally pull over to the side of the road and, where am I? Where am I going? The streets didn't connect. They still don't. And I can be traveling on a road or a street that I've been over many, many hundreds of times. And all of a sudden, the landscape is not familiar to me. And so I have to gather my thoughts. I've learned and sort of trained myself to go up here and just grab them. And, and at this point, I am able to will myself into, okay, I know where I am now. Forgetfulness. I can be talking to, it won't happen with you, but I can be talking to someone one day and, maybe have quite a conversation with them. The next day, I might not remember the name, the face, or what we talked about. Small things that turn into big things. If we lose our keys, that's not a big deal. But if we put our keys in the refrigerator and we can't find them, then we might have difficulty. Things that you normally do, keeping a checkbook, or getting lost in the neighborhood, or it's things that as we get older happens to us only it happens either earlier or to a different and more drastic. It's not anything anybody wants. They don't fully understand it. They don't fully have a cure for it. There really isn't any new medications out there. So when you get the diagnosis, the tendency is to sit back and sit in fear. And for some reason, I was blessed with, oh, heck no, not going to do that. And so I have become an advocate and an activist and written these books, hoping that people could read them. They're poetry. Don't jump away. They're poignant. They're poignant, to the point. But I've had people tell me that you could be an alcoholic, or you could be a drug addict, or you could have any kind of other problem. And these poems would kind of grab you where you needed to be grabbed. So I'm blessed with that and delighted to be here talking to you.
Well, you know, this is perfect for me scenario, because I know very little about Alzheimer's, which is great, because I'm going to ask you dumb questions, and I think that that's the best way to learn about things, is talking to a dumb guy about it.
Yes.
Because you start
and I don't remember, so we're a good pair.
Yeah, so we're good. But I am diagnosed with ADD. I was diagnosed a while back, which there's some similarities there, because you say, because I've left my wallet in the refrigerator before. but it was very bad when I was younger. It was, and I was diagnosed, a psychiatrist and everything. And it was funny because I remember I was with a is it a psychologist before a psychiatrist? I don't, but yeah, I don't know. And he said, oh, I think you have ADD. So he gave me an appointment with a psychiatrist. And I remember the psychiatrist asked me 3 questions that had nothing to do with memory. It was just these 3 questions. I don't remember what they were. I remember I answered them. And then he says, yeah, you have it. And I was like, wow, you have an easy job. So he right there, and then he gave me medication for it and everything.
Of course he did.
And the medication was made me feel weird, so I stopped taking it. And then I started kind of thinking about, from my personal view of it, is that and I know this sounds a little strange, but I started thinking, like, the reason I didn't like the medication is because it was changing who I was a little bit and how I saw things. And everything.
That's what I thought when they gave me medication right out of the box.
Right.
You know, a nanosecond after he said it. Here, take this. You're gonna like it. Oh hell no, I'm not gonna like it. No.
Right. No. And although there's a little bit of suffering that is involved in dealing with this odd thing, in that, you know that not knowing, forgetting where you are, not knowing, what you did with something, or doing just silly things, and
forgetting appointments, or yeah. I left people sitting in a fine dining restaurant. Oh boy!
But there's also the other side that you seem to have taken a hold of, where it encourages you to notice things harder than you did before, because you're aware now that there's a problem.
Yes.
Is that
early
kind of
detection.
what you're talking about when you say you reach up and grab it? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Yes. Initially I would get anxiety would come in, and I would get so just crazy, because I knew this wasn't right, and I've got to figure it out. Where am I going? I got lost in North Las Vegas late one night, and not so much that it was North Las Vegas, but it was dark, and I wasn't familiar with it, and I really had to work at getting home. And and every time, for myself, and I'm no expert on this Alzheimer's stuff, I just know what I've done in order to make it okay for me. Mm-hmm. And I hope that I can do that for someone else, make it easier as you go along. But I lost my train of thought, but you would.
No, but I think that what you're, in the manner in which that you approach this thing, I think that you seem to have applied a characteristic that I've always known about you since we never sat down and had a conversation.
No, we haven't.
But you've always seemed to me to be just walking optimism. You're like a smile with legs, where you were always. Whenever I saw you, I was like, oh, It's Nancy.
Thanks,
You,
Alex.
you just had this feeling like no matter what was going on, it was like, oh, and then I'd get a hug, back when we could hug each other.
Of course you would.
And then, but it was always something like that. And I think that there's something inherent in you, which is so great that you're writing these books, because you're sharing a strength with people that sometimes they might forget they have from the sadness they get in being diagnosed.
Isn't
right?
that true? Isn't that true? And of course, well, I know what I was going to say is that every time I do something that chinks my armor, something that wasn't normally Nancy, and embarrassed me, or like like losing my thought with you just a second ago, I used to just crucify myself, like, ooh. Now I laugh and I say, oh my gosh, it no big deal. It just, and maybe it'll come back to us. I liken it with Swiss cheese. So we take a piece of Swiss cheese with the holes in it.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I do that, I've gone down in and I'm in one of those dark holes. And sometimes I can come back right up and sometimes I can't. And if I get befuddled and angry because I can't come right back up, I spend a good deal of time down there in the muck. So I try not to do that. I try to just pick it up. So thank you for noticing. People say to me, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. And I say, thank you. They did not know what I went through to get there and to put myself together. So it's not always that way, but it is a good portion of the time.
Well, yeah, I think that people that are, and the way I described you as always being optimistic, I mean, you're a fool if you think that these people that are like that make you feel good, are always like this, are always feeling like that. They put this out into the world. They put this positivity out in the world because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be like, you're supposed to be a kind person. You're supposed to try to make people feel good. You're supposed to do this. If everybody,
boy, we need some of that.
Right. If everybody was thinking in these terms and understanding that it isn't a fake thing, it's just putting out positive energy.
Right.
And that everybody's going through things, everybody suffers through things, and then act accordingly. I think that I don't see that as being something that's unrealistic. I think that it's always, I've always found that being curious and acting curious always pays off. I did this thing a while back, and I guess this is going to turn into a question to you. Then I'm going to tell you this, and I'll turn it into a question. So, a while back, I started thinking, I know a lot of cool people, I know a lot of interesting people, and I started scheduling coffee lunches with them, and then I'd sit with them, and then I would just ask them questions, and I wouldn't talk about myself. That was the rule. I would not say anything about me, and I wouldn't answer any questions they had about me. I would just say, this isn't about me, this is about you, and I'd learn as much about them as possible. And it was fascinating for me because I'm learning things, but I also saw something in them where they would start, because it's now they get to talk about themselves, and there's no rules. And how often are you given that freedom and to express something? And boy, great stuff.
Didn't you walk away feeling good? I used to do that with a business breakfast meeting, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you're supposed to spend as much time off as during the meeting, and you're supposed to go to coffee with people just like you were doing, and talking to them. And and there's always some people you'd rather talk to than others. And when it came to the ones that I'd rather, maybe not, I would go, and every time without fail, I walked away saying, I am so glad that I spent this hour having coffee with you. I just am so glad that I took this time. And we almost have to be made to do that. But you do. Then you have this warm and fuzzy feeling that you wouldn't have had if you didn't take a minute to be nice to someone.
Yeah. So
that's funny. You do it too.
Yeah. So that's my question to you: is somebody that's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's and they're going through this kind of stuff, is that a good procedure of a thing for them to maybe try to do? Is maybe just have more conversations, not so worried about remembering?
Well, that is definitely something that helps us all even people perhaps with depression, you know, is that we get what we give, and the energy that we get just magnifies itself. So if you're having an honest conversation and you're feeling a little down, and then you laugh like we're laughing in this conversation, or you find out something, and just like you, I found out a lot of things that you and I are very similar in, right, during this conversation. And so then it's a warm conversation, and the two people walk away thinking, wow, that was well worth the time. So yes, sociability for someone with dementia is a must. But what happens kind of sometimes is that you don't feel like it. So you've probably heard me say and wiggle, you got to pull those big girl panties on and go do it whether you want to or not, because it is easier sometimes to just sit,
right,
than it is to get up and get going. So this pandemic has not been really a particularly good thing for me, and it hasn't, I'm sure, for many, because it becomes easier and easier to just sit and not become part, not, you know, not to get out there and
mingle with everybody and try to
mingle with everybody. Yeah.
You know, the thing it's funny because, you know, the topic is always creativity with me. And I think a lot of things are intermingled with creativity. And I call it creative courage because, you know, and I explain in the book that you so kindly showed me that you have right there.
I do. I have it. I wanted to use that because it's certainly, and you know, you and Brian and Imagine Communications has walked with me through my journey. And it is, I am a different person. We have people in our life that do show us courageous steps to take, right? And writing the book, although I knew that's what I wanted to do, I didn't know how to do it until I walked into your office, and Brian so kindly stepped up. And so those things are what become really important in life.
Right.
Is the people that we meet along our walk, our journey.
Well, it must be so difficult for someone who's always been, you know, had a strong grasp of who they are and what they do, to suddenly be told by a medical professional that there's this thing that's happening to them. So there's this, so that not only do you have the thing, but you have the emotions that you're feeling because of the thing.
Right.
So there's this dual weight that you're carrying.
There is.
And you can't control one of them, but you can control the other one, right?
Right.
And
well, and so, excuse me. And so what happened to me when I started to get these words that were coming to me and turned into poetry, and it was like journaling. I mean, how many of us have journaled in life? So it was like journaling, and it explained to me my feelings. So I knew it was okay to say, damn it, I don't like this. I'm mad that I'm here. And then to walk through it, and the words just came to me. And so it made it so much easier. We all would be better off. So, you know, with every good thing, there's a bad thing, or every bad thing, there's a good thing. So with the pandemic, it has made most of us slow down, right?
Right.
And when we slow down, we then realize, and I can see it, we then realize, hey, the power is within. The power is right here. You have to stop long enough in order to see it, to feel it. And every time I make a mistake, or I do something that's hurtful for someone else because I forgot and stood them up, or whatever it is, it chinks my armor, and it makes me feel less than, or not worthy, or I'm getting worse, or, you know, and that's sobering. That's sobering to me. And then I say to myself, I look around. One day I was in a parking lot, I was going into Lowe's, and I saw in my rear view mirror a man who got out of his car. He opened his front car door. He held on. He swung his feet around. He pulled himself up. Then he walked on the car, opened the back door. He pulled out a wheelchair. He gets in the wheelchair. He goes into the store and I bump into him, Alex, 3 or 4 times in the store. And I'm thinking, okay, I came in here not feeling so good, and shame on me because I could maybe not be able to walk. Shame on me. He was there as I was checking out, and I watched him do the same procedure to get back in his car. And I have never forgotten that man. And I thank him for coming to me that day, because that is a waste of time to feel sorry.
Right.
So I don't feel sorry for myself. I don't ask for that.
Yeah. And I think that's important perspective to take, especially during something like that. I think that's a powerful thing. To see metaphors in your own life is important. Not to be told that they're metaphors, but to see something and then learn a lesson from the thing is such a powerful tool that we have, and we don't use it often enough. Every day something happens, and you could look at it and analyze it and start understanding. Now, and it's funny because I think that, and I think that this, and I'm not a doctor, okay, but I do think that there's the unconscious mind, though, is a powerful thing, because that's where your poetry came from. It was gifts from your unconscious mind.
Yes.
And I think your unconscious mind is pretty smart, and it's there with you, because and I always talk about it not being something you control, but it's always with you, and it's aware of all of your values and everything is important, all your fears and all your strengths. It lives in there, your subconscious. And when you saw the man, it said, "Look at him." It said, "Watch him." Because
I know, instead of rushing out, right? I just sat there and looked at that rear view mirror. I was just like mesmerized.
And it doesn't tell you why. It just tells you that you should. And for us to ask the question, well, why is my subconscious making me curious about this thing? And then when you go through that process and actually start to decode that, boy, cool stuff happens. You start to see things. And that act, I think that's understanding moments of discovery. That was your moment of discovery. I'm going into my book now. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yes, I think I read that. Yeah.
But you have this moment of discovery that turned into a story, that turned into a lesson, that turned into a way that someone else could learn something too. Isn't that what it's about? If people don't understand what the meaning of life is, I think that is it. I think it's us being aware.
Yes.
Hearing.
Well, yes. And the word being, what does it mean that you and I are here? Occupying space. And it's if it isn't to be kind to others and to help others, what is it?
Yeah.
I think people have making money mixed up with that, but I'd love more. But I'm just saying, I think we get mixed up at different times and lose our way. But I do believe that's true.
So poetry. Have you ever written poetry before? Was it just
No. Excuse me. When people call me a poet, I kind of shrug my shoulders and smile. No. I just, when this started.
Answer, no. Yeah. So you know what I'm going to do, right?
Yeah, put that on, sure.
No, but you know what I'm going to do right now, right? I'm going to ask you to read a poem.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't you read one of your poems? Just you pick it. You pick one that you think.
Okay. Well, I will read the very first poem that I wrote. So the very first morning at 3 a.m. in the morning.
This is the poem that inspired all the other poems.
Yes, this is the one. Yes. And it's called Blue River Apple. When you go to the doctor, one of the things that happens is they give you words to remember. And sometimes they give you 3 and sometimes 5. And somebody said 7. And I said, oh no. And they ask you a lot of questions. And it's a process of elimination, actually. They don't really have a real easy way to determine where you are and what they want to call you. The first time I heard anything about Alzheimer's, the person said to me, "My, you must be high functioning." I looked, high functioning? She said, so I said, "Oh, okay, thank you," and walked along, and it became a joke. I didn't know what that was. Okay, so my book is Blue River Apple.
Yes.
Okay, Blue River Apple are the 3 words in the doctor's office that they ask me to remember. And then they ask you to spell world frontwards and backwards, and they ask you a bunch of questions. And then later they say, Can you remember those? And I couldn't remember all of them. And so it's just a tick, she couldn't do that. Can you draw a clock? I could not draw a clock. That was amazing to me in the moment. I really cha-ching. But at any rate, so this is the words at 3 a.m. in the morning when I very, very first began. And before I called it poetry. Blue River Apple. Today's journey. Develop courage, splash on a smile, be who I want to be, not afraid of who I am becoming. To awake at night, fearful of forgetting important and precious things like people, dates, times, appointments. I am not in control. Please help me, God. Thoughts jumble, words disappear, times mix up, promises go astray. When I hear, where are you? Are you coming? Eyes water, stomach churns, humbled in disbelief. I know I have done it again. Do I stay home, cancel, quit, or fight for rite of passage through the fog? Silently I say, I am not what I appear. I am sorry for what you see. Breathe in courage, splash on a smile, struggle to remember. I must find pieces of myself and revel in who I know I am. Chin up, treading lightly in new, uncharted waters. At times I catch sideways glances back and forth, perhaps even your voice impatient. I understand. But wait, we stand together, only separate. Can you hear me? I have so much to tell you. I try to mask the imperfections, a dab of foundation, a blush of pink, dressed in clothes, jewelry, and resolve. Daily, though, I have to make sense of where I am on the sliding scale of Blue River Apple. I want to be positive. I am productive. I'm loving and beloved. I am grateful, creative, alive. Therefore, I am blessed with a voice to tell my inner story, Blue River Apple.
That's lovely. You're lovely.
Thank you.
That I think that it kind of gave me goosebumps. That was so nice.
Thank
I mean,
you.
I can see how that could launch a book or a few books.
Well, good thing I did then, huh?
I think that's wonderful, and I think that we're going to put links to these books and things and everything here. I think that you have a pretty great story to tell and an important message to put out there, and I think that it's for more than just maybe. I mean, I know it's Alzheimer's; it's a very major focus, but I think that there's lessons in your approach to dealing with the Alzheimer's that could help people in other ways that are dealing with other things too. I don't know.
Well, I think you're right. And in 2013, I diagnosed, and then in 2017, I was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for the change, although I have amyloid plaque on my brain, and it's pretty healthy amount, I have been able to successfully at this point keep track, keep it in check. And so I was really confused and very angry all of a sudden to have this diagnosis and then have this other diagnosis. And it's supposed, mild cognitive impairment is the beginning, and early onset is somewhere following that. And so I really didn't understand, and so I never owned the first diagnosis. I never say I have. You've never heard me say I have Alzheimer's. I say I have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and how glad I am I said that. And now I say I have been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, and it does not need to go any farther. I didn't answer to the other. I'm not going to answer to mild cognitive impairment either. Perhaps I'm going to go down to nothing. Wouldn't that be great?
Right.
So I do think that it is a decision that we make. It is a choice that we make that we don't know. It's a choice that we really don't know. And that choice for me was to be a little sassy about it and say, hey, that's not me. So when I asked about it, why the change? Because I'm really I should feel a lot better about it. In here, I don't feel any different. I'm doing the same thing. So, and my doctor at Cleveland Clinic said, you have learned how to compensate. And if people would be able to do that, if more people would be able to do that, have a chance of living longer better. And that's what I'm about. It takes looking at it, not ignoring it. Early diagnosis is really, really important. Getting a great doctor is really, really important. And if you're going to a doctor who has diagnosed you and you don't like it, and you don't like him very well or her very well, you need to find somebody that you connect with. And I did with the doctor at Cleveland Clinic. And I feel blessed there too. So there are things that we can do. We can go to the Alzheimer's Association or Cleveland Clinic, Lou Ruvo Center for Brain Health. They've both helped me a lot, and I've helped them a lot, and we're good partners. So we have to talk about it. Communication is key.
Very super important. And I kind of also feel like the way, just hearing your work and just seeing how you're handling this, it's almost like I think in metaphors a lot. I see it as kind of like finding a railing, like when you're going down steep stairs, you feel this fear that you're going to fall, but you find a railing, and your poetry seems like is kind of like maybe you're railing.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. And I think that people need to find their railing, whatever it is, because it helps you, because you can be writing your poem and you can refer back to it and reread it, or you can see where you left off and then read the words before and see where your thought process was. And I think that's a good thing for it's like just a jump on your memory a little bit, going through those things. And I've written poetry and I've done paintings, and every time I look at the work that I've done, no matter where it is or how long it was, I always remember where I was and who I was when I did it, and what you were feeling and what you were thinking. So it's a record of time.
Right.
You don't have to rebuild, because it's
that's right. And I'm so different today, right? And we're in 2020, and this was in 7 years ago. I'm so much different today than I was then. I think I'm a nicer person. I think, but perhaps we all get nicer when we get older. I don't know. It maybe not. So I think that it's changed me, and it's certainly given me a purpose and a mission that takes me out of myself. And there again, would that not be part of my success, is that I have taken it away from Nancy and given it to you.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That here we have this thing we can do.
Right.
And so this thing is helping others. Yeah. And when we help others, we feel better.
Right. It's interesting also to think that such lovely work has stemmed out of something that, should have derailed you in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I don't know. I had never written poetry, and even now, when one of the RJ journalist, he said it's prescription poetry, and I said, "Wow, it is a way to get your thought." Yeah, and and I haven't taken medication. And so it is my prescription. It is the way that I get through, is by writing words. Right. And thank you for having me today, because we'll touch maybe many, many people, and that's good.
That's the goal. That's the whole purpose.
That is.
And yes. It has been an incredible treat talking to you. And
thanks, Alex.
I find you very inspiring. And the work is the poem was surprisingly like strong, like, you know what I mean, like I could tell where you were when you were writing it, where you were struggling with a lot of things.
Oh, yes, it was.
And
really?
And there was a lot of defiance and a lot of courage in it. And
yes. Do you have time for one more?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so this one is where I just wrote it. Okay, so that one was written in 2013. This one I just wrote, and it's called MCI and COVID-19.
Ooh, okay.
Mild cognitive impairment and COVID-19. Stands off kilter, percolating, smoldering, but somewhat incognito. My own protection ruminating in the internal battle yet remains inside me, with the urge to merge these two unknowns. Waiting upon details, mid the scare, wear, and tear. Mandating, get a grip on slippery memory mind. And mystery air bubbles of an infectious kind. They truly define who I am by how I cope over time with newest diagnosis, MCI, and everyone's threat entitled COVID-10 plus 9. 2 words, lifestyle matters.
It's so interesting that you've never
So
written.
what do you think of that one?
I think that's pretty strong. I think that's strong. It's interesting that you've never written poetry before going through, and it seems these words are just kind of flowing, out of you. I think that's totally accurate. I definitely think that
it's certainly a power far greater than Nancy knew in 2013 and yet today, because I don't know where these words come from, actually. I even go back and read in my books sometimes, and I think, did I write that? I mean, it's like, yes, you did.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing about poetry, and that you're clearly very good at, is that you're just applying words that feel right to an emotion, and you're not following rules. You're just expressing.
Well, that's the wonderful thing. There should be a lot more poets in this world, because you know what? They don't apply rules to us. I can write.
Oh, you're claiming you're a poet. You just did it. You claimed
it.
Oh,
yeah. I did, didn't I?
Yes, you did. Well done. I'm proud of you.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. That's funny.
That's
but I don't know how it happens, but I'm grateful.
Yeah, there's something. There's it's in everyone, right? It only comes out in different ways. Sometimes I think that the only time we let it come out of us is maybe times that are deeply important, like maybe the words we say about a friend at their funeral, or the way that we express our love to someone, in the deepest moments and stuff like that. It's stuff we carry with us all the time, or it's the things we say are very poignant, and we kind of look at them as though they're one-offs, but this is just the moment that they decided to share these feelings, and they placed words on them to share them with you. But
that's true. I think you're right. I think that's really right.
Right. We carry those with us all the time. And I think that it's just a matter that some people, and we have this really silly idea that art and poetry and all this kind of stuff is applied to people, like certain people, like you need a title, like you need a degree or something, when it's humans communicating with each other and just finding ways to communicate. And some of us thankfully have the courage to put ourselves out there, and without fear of criticism or things. And thankfully that exists, and these people exist, because they're the ones that are holding the record of time that we need to remember. And they're the ones that that's the best thing in the world, is like, I love just picking up a book on poetry. Like if we're like like I remember in Ireland, we were in Ireland, my wife and I, and we were in this bed and breakfast, and this woman had a huge library, and I just saw this book, and it was an old book, and it just did poems, and I pulled it out, and I spent all night just reading these fantastic. And I don't know who.
Did you love Ireland? My favorite.
Beautiful.
Oh yeah.
It was beautiful. And talk about people that are natural poets. I mean, just having a conversation with anybody in Ireland,
I love to listen to them. Yeah.
Oh,
for sure.
Yeah. They loved, back then they loved us. They loved America.
Yes.
Everybody had an American. There were more Americans or Irish in America than there were in Ireland at the time. So, but anyway, creating those kinds of situations. Anyway, like I said, thank you again for making time to chat with me.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much.
Was this fun? Did you have fun?
I did have fun. Yes, thank you. Yeah, we'll have to do this again.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to do it. We'll share more of your poems.
Okay.
How about
right.
this, when this next book is done, we'll do this again and we'll talk about
Okay.
That'd
All
be
right.
fantastic.
Okay.
All right, Nancy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.